Nixon with us, former BYU linebacker, now BYU broadcaster and real estate mogul, and apparently pretty good golfer, too. Hey, Dave.
Hey, what's going on, Bill? I don't know about the golfing part. I like to play, but still working on excelling at that stage.
So did you beat the Leighton boys yesterday?
Well, I played with the Leighton boys, and we won. We won the tournament. So we took first place, shot 21 under in a scramble, and that's a legit 21 under, no cheating. So we took on the championship. Pretty proud of ourselves. Dave and Steve are some sticks, so it was fun. And we had some good banter about the game coming up as well, so it's fun.
So that's good. So we had a little Utah-BYU collaboration yesterday on the golf course. It's all for the greater cause. Now, 6 days from now, we probably won't have that, but good collaboration 6 days out.
Yeah, Dave said he's going to be at the game with Harlan, your AD, and I told him after BYU wins, I'll still be friends with them, and we can still be buddies, still golf a little bit. But no, those guys are good guys, and we were joking around. We actually had some pretty good discussions about just where the programs are headed, and what the recent win-loss against Utah, and it was good. I think it's always good to kind of touch base and discuss those type of things because everyone has their own thoughts, and we express those, and it was fun. It was fun to kind of discuss it all.
So tell me where you see BYU heading. I think they've got a good staff, David. I think Kalani and Aaron and Grimes and those guys, I think they've got a good staff. But you tell me how they get more talent into that program to be able to compete with that front-loaded schedule that they have. And obviously the back end is good, but it's not nearly what the front end is. So you tell me how they get from being, 5-7, 7-5, back to winning like when you were there, when Bronco was there, winning 8, 9, sometimes 10 games a year. How do they get back there?
Yeah, listen, it's tough. I mean, this is the growing pains of being an independent football team, is the fact that you've got to deal with front-loaded schedules. I mean, it's obvious. It has to happen. Utes are a prime example. You got to play your non-conference at the beginning of the year, and then, of course, get in your conference later on. So BYU is always going to have a tough September, and that's what independence is all about. When I played in the Mountain West, we'd have 2 or 3 games, and we'd jump in the Mountain West. But now, I would argue that BYU is playing much more difficult opponents than I ever did. And I think when you look at strength of schedule, I think those numbers are skewed because BYU is playing really tough opponents, but they're also playing some big cupcakes like Liberty and UMass, teams that hurt your strength of schedule. But I think if you were to eliminate some of those cupcakes on the back end and look at the first few games and the first few months, you'd see that BYU plays maybe one of the toughest schedules in the country. And Tom Homer mentioned that this week. He goes, "Listen, we want to play the best," and I'm with him. And that's if you polled any football player, anybody on the team, they want this type of schedule because you do get to play the best. I'd much rather play these teams and maybe have you go 2-2 or whatever the record may be, versus playing some cupcakes and just having a 10-2 record. Because I think it's fun to play on these type of venues and this type of primetime television. And like I said, you have the opportunities to pull off of Wisconsin, like BYU did last year, and you're kind of the media darling for that week. But yeah, getting some consistency is the biggest thing, and it's tough to do. I don't know if there's any secret, recipe for it. It's just you got to continue to build depth, and I think Kalani's continue to do that. But it's a tough grind, and the tough thing with these schedules is getting through September, like we talked about, because you're going to get nicked up, you're going to get dinged up. And that's where that depth comes into play, and I think that's what they're still trying to continue to build on, down there at BYU.
David Nixon's our guest, former Cougar linebacker, now BYU broadcaster. So I think that you would probably admit there's a little bit of a talent gap between Utah and BYU, especially 1 through 85, but in the starters maybe a little bit of a talent gap. But there's been talent gaps before over the years. There's been years where Utah was markedly better. There have been years where BYU was better. So if you're Jeff Grimes on offense or you're Kalani Sitake and Elisa Tuiaki on defense, what are you doing from a game plan standpoint on Thursday night to try and close? You're not going to change your roster. You're not going to make your guys faster, bigger, stronger in the next 6 days. So what do you do based on the personnel BYU's got? And what Utah's got a little bit too, David. What do you do to try and close that gap a little bit, keep that game competitive?
Well, listen, I mean, you look at the last 8 games, all these games are competitive. So I would argue that there's not a talent gap. I don't think there's a talent gap where you're starting 22. I think the talent gap comes in your depth, in your 2s and 3s. I would agree Utah has much stronger 2 and 3s because of that depth. But I mean, you look at the last 8-9 games, everything's been decided by, besides the one anomaly, it's a blowout year. Everything else has been decided by a score less. And so, I think BYU's 22 matches up really well with Utah's 22. I mean, you look at this offense and what they were able to do last year. That's a prime example. They were able to rush the ball on Utah's front four, and have some success. But I think when you start getting the depth, and I mean, you saw with BYU, they got guys dinged up last year. Matt Hadley was running back, went down, and next thing you know, you got Riley Bird in there running, and things just started to fall apart. So, I think if you're BYU, you've got to ride your horses and you hope they stay healthy through the whole game. Those starting 22, I think they realized going to offseason that's something they had to fix, and so they tried to build that depth. They went out and got some grad transfers at running back to make sure the same thing happened last year doesn't occur again. But I think BYU has a great shot. Listen, Utah, there's no question they're a phenomenal team, and they've got great talent, and they've got veteran guys coming back. Some of this BYU team is still, they don't have a ton of veteran leadership, guys that have been there, done that. But that's something they're trying to build, and so I think that's why this game is so intriguing. And like you said at the very beginning, when I played at BYU, there were years where we felt like we were much better than you, and that was maybe a down year for them, and somehow the game came down to the last play, right, the Beck to Harleen or the 4th and 18. Then there were years where the Utes were clearly better than us and still somehow came down to the last possession. So I think that's the same thing you're going to see with this game. I think you're going to see a very close game, hard-fought game, and it might come down to whoever gets that ball to the last possession that can drive down the field and put some points and not leave the other team enough time on the clock to try to capitalize. So that's what the rivalry is all about. I love the rivalry. I know Kristen Cox and Fly and all those guys we played against, and it's fun. As former players, we love this game, and it's the fact that it's the first game of the year. I think is even more exciting because there are no excuses. Everyone's got their horses. Everyone's healthy. You should be healthy at least, and it's a game that we played, and whoever comes victorious, there should be no excuse from the other side saying, "Oh, well, this guy was dinged up, or this happened, or that happened." I mean, there really are. There are no excuses.
Interested to get your perspective because when you played against Andy Ludwig. He was the offensive coordinator for Kyle Whittingham. You know the personnel. The personnel for Utah's offense hasn't changed much. Everybody's back. A few changes on the offensive line, but the skill guys, the quarterback, the tailback, knowing what Utah had a year ago and what you saw in that system, but also having played against Andy Ludwig's system when Brian Johnson was the quarterback, do you think that Andy's system is a better fit for what Utah likes to do and with what their personnel is?
Yes. I think Utah's going to find success. You got a veteran quarterback like Tyler Huntley as well. That obviously they're still trying to learn this offense, but anytime you can get a guy that's been around the program and knows the coaching staff and of course knows his teammates as well, like Tyler Huntley does, that's only a huge plus. And so that's something that's a kind of a something that it's tough to put value on because of the experience that a returning quarterback has. And of course you got Moss as well, who's a veteran running back and a leader. So that's the one thing Utah has going for them. I think if you had some younger quarterbacks or younger skill players, it might be a tough transition. But you got guys that are older, mature, and understand the game more, that where this transition is a little bit smoother for them. And I think they'll find success early. So, I think Ludwig's a brilliant coach. I remember going against them, and we had some fun battles. And that was the one thing about Utah. Everyone kind of saves their best for this game, and they pull out stuff the week of the rivalry week that they don't show throughout the rest of the season. So and it's always funny. You're getting the opposite team's best every time they come out there for the game. I think that's what also makes it so much fun.
David, biggest concern you've got about your side, the Cougars, heading into the opener that maybe you don't know what it is through fall camp?
I think the pressure issue, defensive pressure, is something that, now that BYU lost Corbin Kafusi, who was kind of their mainstay on the outside. I think getting some pressure on Huntley and disrupting him, because like I said, he's a veteran guy. He's going to stand back there and he'll be poised in the pocket and be able to pick guys apart. And if you're not getting guys in his face and pressure on him, then it's going to be a long night. And so I think, getting some pressure, dialing up some blitzes. If I were Elisha Tuiaki, going against like I said, against Huntley, that's his first year with the new OC, I'd be bringing as much pressure and creative pressure, not just straight up blitzing them, but bringing safeties down, maybe some corner blitzes, and just throwing tons of different looks at Huntley to try to confuse him. because I think pressure is going to be the key here. Because you've got to be able to put Utah in tough predicaments. You got to be able to put them in third down and longs, and that's going to have to stop. You have to stop the run on first and second down and try to force them into tough positions. But I'm sure they're dialing up the game plan just like the Utah and Ludwig dialing up their game plan and come out there. And it'll be fun to see how that first quarter goes. I think that will obviously set the tone, as we saw with the Vegas Bowl years ago, and how that set the tone for the rest of that game. But it's fun. I mean, I just remember the tough thing about it being first game is there's always some first game jitters, regardless of who you're playing. But the problem with this year is you're playing your rival that there's not enough time to get your first game jitters out. You got to be sharp and ready to roll. And so concentration and focus will definitely come into play here. And I imagine the emotion of it as well. I mean, the emotion when you play your rival as well there's no doubt that it's a different game. And as players, we treat it differently. And listen, I know Bronco gets a lot of grief. People felt like he didn't treat it differently. He treated it differently. He expressed behind closed doors that this is a special game and we need to go out there and win it. And the media, I think he kind of downplayed it a little bit, but everyone knows this is a huge game for both sides. Even though Utah has their Pac-12 to move on to, I think they would the players openly admit that this is a big game for them. And obviously, I think both sides will treat it that way.
Well, hey. BYU's got their Pac-12 to move on to, too. They've got Washington and USC coming up right around the corner. It's not as if they're not playing a Pac-12 schedule, too.
Yeah, it doesn't lighten up for the Cougars this year. I mean, I think this has to go down as probably the best home schedule BYU's ever had. When you throw in USC, Utah, USC, Washington, and then Boise State later in the year. And so it's an exciting schedule. And for BYU fans, like I said, I wouldn't want any other way. I mean, of course, yes, it'd be nice to go space those games out and maybe, have a couple games in between to rest guys up or get guys healthy. But knowing kind of the toughness of an independent schedule, you've got to roll with it. And this is how it lays out. And so you're prepared. And I will say this, guys are preparing themselves all throughout off season to know that they've got to have enough endurance to last this month of September and into October, and they'll get their break later in the season. But you got to condition knowing that it's a brutal first, 6 games, really.
I'm going to get you tuned up for the game with this last question, David. And don't dodge it. Don't give me some coach speak. I want a David Nixon football answer here. BYU wins Thursday night if what happens?
I think BYU wins Thursday night if Tyson Williams and Lupita Katoa can rush for more than 150 yards combined. I think if Zach Wilson has to take over the whole game by himself, and put the games in his hand to rush the ball, to pass the ball, I think that's a recipe for disaster. He's going to have some guys take that pressure off his shoulders, and that comes in the running backs. The running game is going to be crucial to get some yards and put him in more manageable third down. Because if you have 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, Zach can create. He can get outside the pocket. He can rush for those 5 or 6 yards. But if it's 3rd and 10 and 11, it's obviously much more tougher. It's much tougher. So I think the run game is crucial, and I think the defense. I think they'll hold up. I think they'll find ways to get pressure, but I think this run game has to be explosive and really put Utah's front seven on their heels a little bit.
David.